Eddie, welcome to the Take Flight podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, thanks so much for doing it, mate. I've been so excited. I don't know if the guys told you, but this is my 100th episode.
Congratulations, mate. Congratulations. How long have you been running now?
3 years.
Well done. You started early. Now there is literally a podcast for every subject you could possibly discuss.
Yeah, it's a minefield out there.
Yeah, it is. Well done for lasting the distance.
Yeah, cheers, mate. And I'm really pleased to be sharing the milestone with you, so I appreciate it.
No problem.
So before we start, I've got to give a massive shout out to John Ryder, because he was the one who linked me with your guys at Matchroom. So made it happen. It wouldn't have happened without him.
Good man. He's actually got some big things coming up, John Ryder. So, was unlucky. Had a great close fight with Callum Smith for the world title, and I think he's going to get another shot in 2021, which would be nice.
Yeah, I'll keep my fingers crossed. I was hoping he was going to get that Canelo shot, but
yeah, it wasn't a million miles away. Yeah. Wasn't a million miles away.
Well, listen, I had so much help with making this happen, which I'm really pleased has happened, including Fred, who just joined there.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him, it was about 2 weeks ago. I've been chasing him ever since. And it was one of them when he said, listen, Mark, I promise I'll do my best for you. I promise I'll do my best. and put the phone down quite quickly. And I thought, he's never going to do that. But to be fair to him, kept his word. And
well, I'm trying. I've got my own podcast as well. And I know how difficult it is to nail everyone down and get a schedule going. So, yeah, you caught me at a good time. We got a show this weekend, but you got me. You got me.
Yeah. And the book's come out, which is exciting, mate. How was that?
It's good. I mean, I thought it was just funny, really. When I first got asked to write a book, I got a couple of approaches to do an autobiography, and I thought, blimey, I'm only 41. Isn't that something you do when you're about to cop it? So Hodder came on, and they wanted more of a sort of business book. And I think with all the no context Hearn and the fact that I was turning into a bit of an Instagram meme, I thought this is good. This will give me a bit of credibility. And it's hilarious because I was pretty useless at school. So to think that I would ever end up writing a book, selfishly, I thought that's a good tick on the box. So, and then lockdown came, and literally, they said, look, presumably you got a bit of time on your hands. Do you want to do it? And, we wrote it in lockdown, and unbelievably, it went to #1 in the Sunday Times bestseller list on the business section. And it's been good. It's been good. I think it was good therapy as well, because you start writing about your life, and you're almost talking to yourself about experiences you've had and lessons you've learned.
Therapeutic.
Yeah, I think so. And I think when you talk about not even mental health, but like mental stability and getting yourself in a good place, it's good to be open and discuss things. And you can do that with yourself as well. I think as long as you have an understanding of what's happening or what's been happening in your life or what you want to happen, and you're kind of, you're not blocking things out. You're not trying to forget those memories. You're not trying to shield anything. You're just being open and honest with yourself. I think that's a good start, and I enjoyed it.
How do you do? Have you ever done like journaling, or how else do you do that sort of reflection or visualization?
I don't know. I'm quite honest with myself, and I'm probably definitely my own biggest critic. I'm never really happy with my work either. I think it's a bit sad sometimes, but it's what helps me focus and what pushes me to keep pushing the boundaries and keep improving. I think the moment that you sit back and you say, "Oh, I'm the nuts," we're running boxing, no one can touch us, our events are, then you got nothing to strive for anymore. So maybe subconsciously I play that game with myself where, I remember when I done AJ against Klitschko at Wembley in front of 90,000. Because I was so engrossed in the event and what was happening, I never really felt like it was that special. And people would stop me and say, can I just say, that was the best event I've ever been to. I've been to World Cup games, I've been to Ryder Cups, I've been to Wimbledon finals. And I'm like, really? So I don't know whether that's the game I play or whatever it is, but in terms of journals or making notes, I think the best solution is to be honest with yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously, but also focus on your short-term goals. I'm a big believer in that. I know that it's great to have a vision and I know where I want to be, but I also understand that's impossible. And it's sometimes not even worth thinking about without solving the immediate problems that are in front of you. So many people fail to get ideas or projects or business or dreams off the ground because they're not willing to solve the aggravation of the short-term problems, or they fall at one of those hurdles and then they give up. So for me, if I'm feeling a little bit all over the place, or feeling like I'm lacking a bit of structure in my life, or then I will write down things that I need to do for that specific day. And they can be menial. They could be going to the gym, or walking the dog, or buying some food from Tesco's. But it just helps you have a little bit of structure and that sense of achievement. Say, okay, this is what I need to do today. At the end of the day, when you go to bed, you've ticked them all off. You've been productive. You've had a good day. You've got momentum. And that's how I move forward. I'll do that quite a lot, and they won't always be going to Tesco's or walking the dog, but there'll certainly be, things that I need to do in the business, or for shows that are coming up, or for fighters that are coming up. And then almost like you feel like you're back on the horse. Okay, we've got some momentum now. We're moving in the right direction. So I think short-term goals are very important. In the book, we talk about marathon running. Remarkably, I once ran a marathon very slow and very painfully. But
how fast did you do it?
Yeah, 4 hours, 9 minutes.
Oh, that's all right.
Not too bad, but I really wanted to beat 4 hours. But I liken it to that, where if you start a marathon and you think about 26 miles, I mean, it's a horrendous thought, and you think, I just can't do it. But every mile is just a short-term problem to help you get to that final destination. And before you know it, before you get over that 1 or 2 or 3, before you know it, you're at 12, and then you're at 18, and then you're at 24. But if you get too engrossed in the final destination and don't solve the problems and the mile markers that are in front of you, you won't run a good time, or you won't complete it, or you won't be able to bring yourself to try and solve the problem. So for me, those short-term problems, and every major fight has so many short-term problems, like so many obstacles to overcome, and it's literally just focus on each one, just keep solving them.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk to you about goal setting a little bit more in a moment, and I've got a specific example I want to ask you about. But just to come back to what you're talking about with regards to satisfaction, really, is what you're talking about. And I don't know whether it's a curse for the creator or the entrepreneur, the person who's driving the ship, because you're so engrossed in it, you're visualizing it, you know exactly how it's going to happen, and you're bringing it to life. And because of that, it means that perhaps you don't get to enjoy it. Like I even on a much smaller scale, even with this, people listen to it. I love the podcast. It's made me, leave my job or pursue my purpose or whatever it is. I'm never going to experience it in the same way as a listener is, or someone who comes to an event or hears a talk, in the same way that you're never going to experience it as the same as someone who turns up to one of the fights and just gets to be in the moment. I wonder whether there's a way that you can enjoy it more. I don't know.
Well, you should do. Because ultimately, when all is said and done, the only thing you have left is your memories. When you're laying there and that life is on the way out, you're supposed to look back on the great moments and the moments that made you smile and the moments that you've enjoyed. I do enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but I think that it's very difficult when you're engrossed in something so deeply to sit back and enjoy it. On my podcast, I had Frank Lampard on, and it was so weird listening to him say exactly the same thing about winning Champions League. He said, I'm so driven that when I won the Champions League, I always dreamt of winning the Champions League. And then on the night, we won it, and I lifted the trophy, and I didn't feel anything. Don't get me wrong, I was over the moon, but I never felt how I expected to feel having won that Champions League. And he said, to be honest, I don't understand why. And I said to him, I think it's because when you talk about goal setting and how driven you are, it's almost like on to the next one. When's the next buzz coming from? When's the next goal? When's the next target? And that's my mindset as well. If you'd have said to me, I don't know, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, one day you will promote the biggest fight in British boxing history at Wembley Stadium in front of 90,000 with Anthony Joshua, your fighter, beating Vladimir Klitschko in one of the fights of the century to become the unified world heavyweight champ. I mean, I would have been like, no, shut up. And then you get to a stage where it's happened. And, I remember laying in bed that night in a hotel, and, I had a few beers after, but I never, not a big drinker anyway. I don't really drink after shows because I'm almost flat, because the adrenaline rush of the show. And I remember sitting in bed like after about 5 o'clock in the morning. And don't get me wrong, I was really happy. But all I could think about was the next week and the next show and who AJ was going to fight next and how we were going to get the other belts. And, you know, it's a bit sick, really, to be honest with you. And I don't know. You know, you'd have to speak to a psychoanalyst about why that is a feeling. But when you speak to a lot of people that are really almost sickly driven, they all say the same thing. But you do have to be a little bit careful, because what I should have been doing that night is probably getting paralytic in a club till 5 o'clock in the morning without a care in the world, almost saying, do you know what? Leave me alone for 2 weeks. I'm going on holiday with AJ to Ibiza and we're going to celebrate. But I couldn't bring myself to do that, because all I could think about was the next problem or the next goal. And I think, you know, although I'm not sure that's ultimately beneficial for your lifestyle, that's the drive that's within to just be the best. Keep, you know, I don't want to go out and miss a day in the office, or, you know, miss a beat where someone wants to make a move on me and you know, I get gazumped on something, or all I want to do, and all I do is literally every moment I'm awake, just think about the business, think about the sport, think about the fighters, the shows, and what we're trying to do. And it's, you know, it's like I said, it's a sickness. You know, I don't feel like it's a bad sickness. I'm sure many people will look at me, probably my missus quite a bit, and think, you are like, you know, you're on another planet. You are. She hears me downstairs at 4 a.m, you know, on Zoom calls to America, and, you know, negotiating deals or shouting and screaming. And, you know, I'll wake up. She'll wake up in the morning and go, was that you last night at 3 o'clock in the morning? What were you doing? I was like, I was on a Zoom call, you know, downstairs trying to sort this fight. Well, what time did you get out of bed? About 4:45 in the end. You know, and I'm up at 7 to take the kids to school. But I don't feel, you know, the moment I feel like it starts to play a part on your health. I mean, there was a stage where for 2 years before lockdown, I was traveling, you know, we launched our American business, and I was literally there every week, you know, and it would be fly home, land at Heathrow, drive straight up to Manchester for a press conference for a UK show, come back, pick the kids up from school, take them to school in the morning, and then fly off to LA. And then, you know, and it was mad. And lockdown actually came at a good time for me, because it just gave me a chance to think about where I'm going, because I don't think that was healthy. You know, I don't think that was going to give me longevity in life. You know, I want to be around, see my kids grow up, I want to see them, you know, get married and have their own kids. And, you know, you just got to be careful. And I think the only good thing about the pandemic and the lockdown is, I think people have just realized, actually, the hustle's important, but don't just get caught up in the rat race, you know, and lead an unhappy life. Sometimes it's like, you know, when you go on a train and you go up to London and you look at people's faces and they are so miserable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And listen, I'm miserable when I'm on the train, but you just think to yourself, and listen, you always have to pay the bills. You have to survive, but you are in a job you really don't want to be in. You know, you are in a career that doesn't give you any kind of, you know, feeling or passion or, you know, spirit. And that's sad, I think. So we have to remember, we're very lucky to do what we do. I love doing what I do. And I'm blessed to do that. So I shouldn't moan.
I love that.
It's hard at times, and I put a huge amount of work in. But I'm the fact that I can get up and do it, the fact that I can have an hour and a half sleep and go and do a press conference all day and speak to the media, and I ain't moaning, because I love it.
That's so good to hear.
And you're good, you won't be beaten.
It's funny, because there's so much to say to what we've said there, mate. It's amazing. I think that it's interesting, because that's the cost of having the level of success that you've got. So I think that's really eye-opening for everyone listening. That's what it takes. You called it a sickness. And I love the example of people who perhaps aren't pursuing their passion and probably wouldn't want to put that kind of level of effort and work and energy into it because they hate it. That example of being on the train. I think about it a lot, because I've just moved out of London, actually, but I was there 10 years and on the tube every day going in, and you see that every single person's got a miserable face on because most people going into something they don't like, and they're doing it because they're trapped into a system. But part of the message of Take Flight is about pursuing your purpose, taking that leap of faith into something that you actually enjoy and living the life of more meaning. which often means being healthier and happier at the same time. What would you say to people who feel like that?
It's not, the lifestyle of someone who is driven and successful is not for everybody. Okay, so happiness, there's a difference between success and happiness. You can be a success in something, but it doesn't mean you're happy. And I know that I've had times in my life where I haven't been as happy as I should be, but I've been extremely successful. And that's when, when you talk about the lockdown, that's when it just starts kind of sort of realigning and refocusing what's right and wrong. But success, what you have to do to achieve success, unfortunately, comes with a lot of unhappiness, because you need to make sacrifices that you shouldn't make and are not normal to make, and that will lead to things that you will miss out on. So, for I think any successful person with a family will tell you that is the biggest sacrifice that you can make, which is, not being able to see your kids, or not seeing them for 2 weeks. And when you do, you see them once or twice, and missing out on going to watch them play sport, or, taking them to school, or, sitting down for a family dinner, which is something that our family just love to do. And you have to have an understanding missus who, just realizes that that's you. They might not like it, but you have to be so selfish and so focused and so stubborn that you won't let anything get in your way. And as bad as it sounds, sometimes your kids and sometimes your wife, because I can't sit here and lie and say, no, you always have to put them first. And, you should. And I try and live by that, but you can't a lot of the time. There's some things that you have to do. If a broadcaster turned around and said, we want this fight on Christmas Day, right? I mean, there was talks recently about doing one in Canelo against Callum Smith that I just made on Boxing Day. And I'm thinking, right, so the weigh-in is in Texas on Christmas Day. So therefore, I'm gone. It's not even, don't even come into consideration.
Don't you have a part in that decision?
Yeah, but sometimes that's the date. That's what suits. And if it isn't, I'll do everything I can to make sure that I don't miss Christmas with a family. But if I have to miss Christmas with a family, I will miss Christmas with a family. And she'll go absolutely berserk. But that's how it is. You can't stop. I'll make up for it. I'll make it work. But you have to understand me, and you have to understand what I'm all about. And that's why I refuse to be beaten, because I know there's other people that wouldn't go. And I know there's other people that would lose the opportunity, or because, I get a bit of heat indoors, I just can't do it. No. And that's where you need the right woman in your life, and the right, who just says, are you allowed to swear on here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. You're an arsehole. I know you're going to go. Right. And then you go, thank you. Right? And off you go, and you have a massive row for a couple of days. And then you just go back to the fact that that's just, and that passion comes from loving what I do. It comes from the fact that this is a family business, and I feel a huge obligation and responsibility to follow in the footsteps of what my dad created from nothing, and not wanting to be beaten. Winning, winning is everything. And growing up, I talk about it in the book. It's mad when people think, when people listen to what I say about my relationship with my dad, and actually even my mum, where I'll come back from football or game of cricket, and they would go, how many runs did you get today? And I would go, 6. 6? Is that all? Yeah. Oh, come on. Pull yourself together. Come on. Like, not, oh, well, at least you tried, or, it's the taking part, son. Don't worry. There was none of that for me, because my dad, who come from Dagenham, in a council house where his dad was a bus driver who had absolutely nothing, gave me a lifestyle because he started making money that, he was petrified that I would be this spoiled rich kid that had no work ethic, that had no value, no manners, no respect. So he would never let me win. Do you know what I mean? So when we played cricket in a garden, he would bowl off a full run when I was 8 or 9. When we were playing football, you know, you get the dad sometimes who give it the old, through their legs. Mate, he would be diving around corners to stop me scoring, because that's what, he taught me that nothing comes easy. Even though I had this great life because he'd earned it and he wanted to give his son and his family a great life, he still instilled that in me. Nothing comes for free, and you only win when you deserve to win. And winning is everything. And it is. You can't, there's no point saying, I say it to my daughters all the time. I get told off by the missus, get out there, you do this. She come home, we lost hockey 2-0. Oh, I played well, Dad. Okay, well done, but I've lost interest in the story now. You lost, right? Make sure you win next time. And that's just the attitude that we have, and it is cutthroat. But and because I'm a failed athlete, really, I was shit at football, I was shit at boxing, I was a good cricketer, but didn't quite make the level to turn pro. This is winning for me. Sport engrossed my childhood and my upbringing, and everything was about playing sport and winning. So when I couldn't really do that anymore, if I'm going to put all my passion into business and life, I need that same motivation of winning. And that's the only thing that gives me the great feeling is winning. So it's a drug.
I completely agree, by the way. Also a failed athlete.
Yeah.
Do you ever consider, or do you even need to, is it a waste of time to consider the conditioning that you had as a kid? Do you ever think about who Eddie would have been if he wasn't Barry Hearn's son?
Yeah, I mean, my dad takes the piss out of me all the time because I say a lot, I wish in a way I would have had the opportunity to try and make it from nothing.
Love it.
And he takes a piss out of me. He goes, shut up. He went, what, you wanted to come up from where I come up? And I said, yeah, because I don't, the only thing that I don't know is, would I be in the position I'm in without my dad? Right? So, or without his success. The only way I could ever get any respect is to take things to a level well beyond he took things. Because if I would have just come into the company and just carried on the success of Matchroom, but if I would have come in and dominated a sport, if I would have come in and changed the sport, if I would have taken it globally and expanded the business and maybe one day go on to float the business or turn it into $1 billion company or billion, that's my success. I did that. But I always, and he says, what, you wanted to have nothing growing up. I said, yeah, because I don't know if I could have made it. I think I would have done. But it still comes down to passion for something. There's a reason that I'm doing as well as I'm doing. Partly is because I've educated myself and I've become good at what I'm doing. But the main reason is because of the passion and drive and the will to win and that relentless spirit to achieve. If you're in a job where you don't have that or you haven't found that, I don't think you can be a success. So unless I found that, you can't say, if you didn't have a famous dad, would you have achieved the same thing? I don't know. But if I had this kind of passion for what I was doing, then yes, I would have achieved great things. But maybe I wouldn't have found that. And maybe I would have been one of those geezers on the train that we talk about, sitting there going, and sitting at work going, I've got 10 minutes. Some of those people I'm envious of sometimes. They leave that office like different world.
I know. I'm
done now. No, nothing to think about. Don't leave. Sit down for dinner with the kids, right? Have a laugh with the missus, play with the kids. No stress, no aggravation, no moods, no looking at your phone to see if that email's come through. Put the kids to bed, sit on the couch, have a bite to eat, have a beer. When I get tired, go to bed, go again. For me, trying to get the kids down and getting annoyed because I need to make this call in a minute. Going downstairs, doing 3 hours of calls, couple of meetings, maybe finalize contracts, go to bed but can't really sleep because my mind is going a million miles an hour. Get woken up in the middle of the night. I've checked an email, can't get back to sleep. Wake up at 7, take the kids to school. So there is a lot of pluses about having that kind of life,
Mm-hmm.
but there is also a lot of negatives. And for me, there's more negatives than positives, because I couldn't imagine not having that drive or that will to win.
Yeah.
Because I think life just becomes boring. But
Just an
but for some people, that's a great life.
yeah. I
You know, and
think that
maybe you'll ask me the same question in 20 years and I'll go, oh, you know what? I wish I would have had that other life where I
no.
was just like, you know, so, but everyone, each their own. I don't look at those people and say, oh, that's sad, or, you know, if you're happy, you're happy. That's the most important thing.
Mm.
But happiness for me comes actually not just being around a family, but achieving,
Mm.
you know, and overcoming goals and adversity and obstacles and pushing the boundaries. That gives me happiness.
Yeah.
So without it, I couldn't imagine just coming out of work and sitting, you know, I'd be bored stiff.
Yeah. There's just an underlying feeling of
Hmm.
lack of fulfillment, I think, for that. And
Yeah.
it's funny though, I heard Peter Crouch talk about it, that he was on his way to an FA Cup final and he saw someone sat outside of the pub with a pint, and he just looked at him and was like, fucking hell, part of him wished he wasn't playing on the day and he just wanted to be there as a spectator. Eddie, I'd love to know a
But
little
the
bit
bloke
more.
with a pint was going, I would give anything to be Peter Crouch today.
Yeah, it's funny how whatever we lack, we strive for
Yeah, of
more.
course,
Yeah.
100%.
I'd love to know a little bit more about your view on relationships. If I trace back how even this happened, 3 years in the making, but it all started with my dad, who introduced me to someone he was working closely with, Kevin Sinfield, the rugby league player,
Right, okay.
who introduced me to another lead Rhinos player, who introduced me to a military cross winner, and it went on and on and on. And it's ended up with John Ryder introducing me to Matchroom. There's about eight links there, and I know it's so important for us to have these relationships to help us succeed and win. So I wonder how you view relationships and how important they are for you to reaching your goals, and then how you kind of navigate athlete relationships versus authentic friendships, and how you balance that.
Well, I think that firstly, relationships are always key in getting anywhere, or particularly when you're in a position of power. People like dealing with good people, and reputation and integrity is everything. And, you know, at Matchroom, one thing we've got is a fantastic reputation across all businesses. And that's something that my dad has, you know, really achieved over the years. And that's important. I think if you're a good person, if you have an effect on someone, you know, and you grab their attention, then you're going to be in a strong position. I mean, Frank Smith, who is my CEO, came up to me at I think it was a Greyhound event, and he was working just as helping a friend out for some charity, and he got me to buy raffle tickets, you know, and he was 15, and he wouldn't leave me alone, just harassing me for more and more raffle tickets. Started saying, I've seen your car outside, you know, you got to have more money than that. And, you know, and in the end, it was a situation where I thought, I like this kid, he's got something about him. You know, the next day he wrote to me and said, I'd like to come in for some work experience. You know, he did a month of work experience in the summer, and then he left school after the 5th year, and he said, I'd like to come and get a job with Matchroom. And I said, listen, I said, you're 16 years old. I said, you need to go and do your A-levels. And he come back, he said, no, I've made my decision. I'm going into the workplace, and I'd like it to be with Matchroom. But if you don't give me a job, then understand, but I'm still going to get a job somewhere else. And I'm just, you know, and now, 10 years later, you know, he's my right-hand man. You know, he's in a major position of power. And he's had an unbelievable journey, traveling all around the world. And, you know, and that's because he grabbed my attention, you know, and building relationships with people. Sometimes people will like you and they want to work with you. They want to help you out, you know, and that's important. When you talk about relationships, business relationships versus personal relationships, for me, the business relationships become a lot better, and I work a lot harder when I have a personal relationship with you. Well, I'm talking about in a boxing sense, and actually in all senses, to be honest with you. If you don't want to let someone down, if someone puts their trust and their belief in you, then it makes me extremely motivated to deliver for them. You know, a good example of that is Anthony Joshua, who may be the easiest person that I work with, and he's also one of the biggest stars in the world.
Is he one of your closest friends, would you say, as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge amount of friends because of my time on the road and my time in business. You know, I have my school friends that I grew up with. It's probably half a dozen of them. And I know that we don't talk every day, but we'll meet up every few weeks and we'll have a right laugh. And I trust them and they trust me, and we'd always help each other out. So a lot of my friends do come through business, you know, and a lot of them who I've achieved so much with have become what I would call very close friends. And AJ is one of them. You know, I've spent the last 7 years, 8 years around him, you know, every fight, you know, chasing dreams, setting targets, overcoming them. You know, he was someone that was supposed to, you know, when we signed him, he was someone that was supposed to go on and become world heavyweight champion. Doesn't mean you do, but he did it. There's other people where you get relationships with that were never expected to do that. And that's an amazing feeling. Tony Bellew is probably the greatest example of that. And another one of my very, very close friends because of what we've achieved together. But those two people are a great example of someone that puts their trust in me, that says, Eddie, and particularly, you know, someone the size of AJ, to go, Eddie, I chose you. You're the man. You know, you're gonna guide me. And he won't always agree with what I'm saying, and sometimes he won't always do what my advice says. But the fact that someone that good and someone with that kind of responsibility and ability has put that trust in you, that's when you get 200% out of me. That's when I will do anything to make sure I deliver for you. Sometimes, you know, a fighter has a manager, and the manager doesn't want you to get too close to the fighter because, you know, his job might become redundant. You know, other examples of that, or a good example is probably Carl Frampton. You know, when we first promoted Carl Frampton, Barry McGuigan was his manager. I don't think I had one conversation with Carl Frampton. You know, I must have done 6 or 7 fights with him. It was almost to a point where, you know, in a changing room after the fight, you'd go up to congratulate him, and Barry would come in and go, "Yeah, all right, guys, all right, yeah." And it's like, I just can't. How do you expect me to not sleep at night? How do you expect me to get on a road and travel all day? How do you expect me to be thinking about you around the clock if I don't even know you?
Yeah.
So I love it when I've got a close relationship with a fighter, and they should love it because that's when you're going to get everything from me. You know, but sometimes people stop that, and you know, through being around fighters, and John, they're great people and they're very normal people. They're very loyal, you know, but they also need help and guidance, because if it was down to them, they'd do or they'd fight anyone. You know, and you know, personal relationships are key. It's difficult sometimes because sometimes you fall out with someone that you were close to, and that's quite difficult to do. But certainly, if I was a fighter, I'd want to be as close to me as possible, because I know, you know, I'm going to be doing more for that individual.
Yeah, so fascinating to hear. I've had a few boxers on, and your name's come up in probably all of those episodes. So it's really fascinating to hear your side. And I think the more that I step into this world where you are building authentic relationships, but there is business and money involved, it's just like navigating that, like what is real and what isn't. Eddie, I just wanted
you have to, just on that, you have to separate the friendship from the business. You know, sometimes, like, it doesn't mean that just because AJ likes me, you know, he's gonna give me commission that he doesn't feel is the right number, you know. But there's a big element of respect between us. He respects the work that I do, and I respect the work that he does, you know, and we're all moving in the same direction, which is the same goal, which is ultimately to see him become undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. So that's the dream, and we won't stop till we get there.
And I suppose you're both of that similar mindset where it's everything. That success and that winning is everything.
Everything. And improving every day, being the best you can be. That's the thing with AJ, is he works on being the best version of him every single day.
And so do you.
In the gym, out of the gym. I do. I mean, I'm a big admirer of his. You know, his job is obviously a lot more physical than mine. He says to me sometimes, I can't believe you do what you do. You know, how do you do it? And I look at him and think, how do I do it? How do you do it? I mean, you're getting up in the morning, and you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, doing your long run. You're coming back, you're sleeping 45 minutes. You're going to do 15 rounds of sparring. You're coming back, you're resting at home, and then you go and do your strength and conditioning work at night. How do you do it, mate? You know, I'm just staying up late on the phone. So the job's very different, but the you know, I guess the sacrifices are the same. not physically, but just
Yeah.
the toll that it takes.
Yeah. You are relentless, as the book title says. I'm interested to know, is there any like practices or anchors that you use, whether, I talk a lot on here about with various guests about things like meditation or breath work, or we spoke earlier about like journaling and therapeutic ways to reflect and get a little bit of downtime. Do you have any of that, or are you always on?
Difficult for me because, again, going back to my background with my dad, where it was like, it's almost like, don't be soppy, son. I mean, when you talk about depression, it's only now really that, the older generation don't even believe it exists, right? Our generation, we do. But at first, I'm, not ashamed to admit, but I would say, depressed, pull yourself together. That's, and he will still say that now. So if I went to my dad now and said, Dad, I've got to be honest with you, I think I'm suffering from depression. Sadly, he would say to me, you what? What are you, how can you be depressed? You got this, you got this, you got this, and we all know that's irrelevant, right? With that disease.
Yeah.
But that's that generation. So it's difficult for me because that goes back to things like breathing and meditation. If I went to my dad, I went, Dad, I've really been getting into meditation. I can't even tell you the conversation. Do you know what I mean? But the same time where he called me and I was in Sainsbury's, and I told him I was in Sainsbury's, and he was like, what are you doing in there? This was like, I don't know. I remember it. I was probably in 20. I just moved into my first house. I'm like, Dad, I'm in Sainsbury's. I'll call you later. What are you doing in Sainsbury's? I said, well, I'm getting some food. You what? Like, he just couldn't believe. He's 72 years old. For him, the lifestyle of someone, particularly coming out of, East London, was you do all the work and the lady in your life does everything,
Really?
looks after you. To this day, he will wake up in the morning and my mum will have ironed him a shirt to put on the door for him to wear that day. That's called old school, right? That's called old East End school. And that don't exist anymore. So when you start talking about meditation and breathing and all that kind of stuff, I know, but I'm still a little bit too old school. I know the benefits. I know I don't practice it, but I'm a believer. But it's difficult because I'm still a little bit of that old school mode to say, that's it. Yeah. I can imagine. And if he ever saw me doing it, oh mate, it's like game over. But like, all right, I'm good to go now. He'd be going, what's going on? So I guess I'm still, I'm sure that in 5 or 10 years' time, that next generation of entrepreneur will be doing meditation and breathing exercises every single morning without fail.
Yeah.
But I might have just missed the boat on it.
Ed, we've got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to try and squeeze 2 more questions in if we can. Yeah. So I just want to acknowledge you, mate, for everything you've achieved, the book and everything you've done with Matchroom and beyond. But one thing stood out to me, which was the way you responded to COVID in lockdown 1. And that was much stronger and there were more restrictions in place than we have where we are now in lockdown 2. But you kind of flew the flag for people who stood in the face of adversity and still took action. And you hosted an event in your back garden. And I'd just love to hear your thoughts on what that internal dialogue was, and then actually how you brought it to life, because it's easy and we all have ideas and we all want to achieve things and make things work and happen. But how do you go about that? Do you write things down on paper? Do you have a meeting room with team?
I think it was fear, really. It was when lockdown came in, just before the full lockdown, I sort of panicked a bit and sort of thought, shit, like we've had to cancel all these events. What are we going to do? So the first thing I thought was, well, everyone's going to be at home. So all the gyms are going to be shut. So let's create a fitness series for people at home during lockdown. So we went away, spoke to a production company, and we actually filmed a 16 episode fitness show in the garden as well, before even fight camp. I went to our broadcast and said, look, we can't deliver our shows at the moment, but what I can give you is this. And everyone's going to be at home. We had all our fighters taking part, we had celebrities, and that went really well as well. And it was at that moment where I started thinking about the garden, thinking, well, we can't go in arenas. we need to be outside. Really, we've got to create this bubble environment that's safe. So I'm going to do it here, and we're going to take over that hotel at the bottom of the road. And I remember coming into the guys in the office, and they're like 99% of the time, I'll say things like that, and they'll just go, "Oh fuck, here he is again. What is he doing?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, but this and health and safety and testing." And I said, "But that's exactly where we get into what we talked about earlier. You're the kind of person, if you're saying that, right? We talk about short-term goals, long-term goals. Long-term goals is creating a brand, fight camp in the garden, and running a sustainable schedule throughout summer. That is the long-term focus. The short-term focus is getting a council approval, speaking to COVID doctors about a testing procedure, speaking to the British Boxing Board of the Control, finding out if fighters can actually fight because they can't even get sparring. Speaking to the broadcasters to see if they'll honour their contractual commitments. These are all the things. And you could look at that and go, oh, blimey, no, there's no point doing this because look at all those problems. Rather than going, okay, first one, let's have a meeting with the doctors about testing. Done. Next one, let's speak to the broadcasters. Done. And before you know it, you've done 7 or 8 of those problems, and that long-term goal starts to become more of a reality. And then you get more and more focused, you get more and more momentum, but you get more and more motivated by people telling you it can't be done. Like the council come back and went, no, we don't want to do it. Oh, that drove me mental. I said, I'm going to get this approved. Right, went to the top guys, talked about the benefits of Brentwood. You've got a hotel down the road. We're going to spend £250,000 in that hotel. We'll save that hotel. This is broadcast live from Brentwood in Essex. And eventually we got permission from them. The board got behind it. All the people initially that said, don't think it can work. And then it became an obsession of mine to say, I'm going to make it work. And then when it came into fruition, on the first night, it was like I walked around the corner and saw it and I was like, fuck, wow. And then I thought about the benefits of that to our business and the reputation globally of people. We're all in the same boat. The remarkable thing about this pandemic is it's everywhere. Yeah. So there isn't anyone that isn't being affected by COVID. So those looking in from the outside in Australia or in Scandinavia and America are looking at this event from a business's back garden going, wow, this is unbelievable. And the credibility for us and the business was great. But the best thing about it is we did it. We overcome the problems, short, medium and long term, and we delivered. And that's the most pleasing thing about it. And that will never be forgotten, that episode. And actually we created a brand in Fight Camp that will return next summer. And it will live long, well beyond the lifespan of COVID. So yeah, that was probably one of our greatest achievements, up there with Joshua against Klitschko at Wembley and so forth, because it was against the odds. It was the one where you didn't give up when you could have. Actually, 2 weeks before that event, I nearly pulled the plug. Really? The council just wouldn't, you got to apply for this license. And it was just, and I said, you know what? Should we just do it in York Hall? And we all sort of said, and I went, no, what am I talking about? No. And then we got it done, and it was a big moment for us.
Right, amazing. Congrats. It's so inspiring. And it's nice to hear how much more rewarding it feels when you've got all those obstacles in the way and you just overcome them. Cool. There's the inspiration or the motivation loop as well, that with every action comes more motivation to keep going.
But there's so many projects or dreams that people have looked at those short-term problems and gone, oh, nah, I'll leave it. Just stick at them. Just honestly, you'll be surprised. It's not that difficult. They might seem insurmountable. They might seem as though you just can't resolve them. But once you start focusing on each individual one and overcoming them, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how things work out. And actually, opportunity only presents itself once you start trying to tackle them. Otherwise, it will never present itself.
Yeah, it's superb. We've got time for one more?
Go for it, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. So sales, I absolutely love, in your book, you said there's always a deal in the making, no matter what. There's always a deal in the making. And I'm a salesman at heart. It's what the corporate world that I left to do this was from selling. So the people listening who want to be better at sales or who want to perfect the art of selling, what sort of advice would you give them if you could sum it up?
Well, selling is all about it's the transfer of emotions from one individual to another. So it's making you believe in what I'm talking about and what I'm selling. And that really comes with passion and belief in what you do. You know, if you can be the greatest salesman in the world, if you sell photocopiers and your product is shit and you know it's shit and the paper jams and the ink doesn't last that long, you know, and sometimes the buttons get stuck after a few months, you can't speak with the same kind of passion as you could do if you had the absolute nuts of a machine in your van that is faultless, right? And then you can go in there. It's the same as if I'm selling a fight. You know, sometimes you got a decent show and I'm up there at the press conference and, you know, we've got this fight. But inside me, I know it's not as good as the one coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Then I can turn up at that press conference and you might not even notice the difference, you know, but I will. And it's selling is the purest art. And I think it's the biggest, I think it's the biggest skill and the most important skill in business. Some will disagree. I would say that because I'm a salesman, but I really feel that if you can sell, and it's not just selling to customers, it's selling yourself, it's selling your business, it's selling your dream, then, you know, but it all comes with speaking with passion and love of what you do.
Yeah.
And if you love what you do and you love what you do with this podcast. So when you're talking about this podcast to people, you know, people feel that. They feel that energy. They feel that emotion. If you're doing something that you don't really love and you're selling it, they feel that too.
Yeah.
So it really, you can be a great salesman, but it still is underlined by the product that you're selling and the passion you have for and the belief you have in that product.
Yeah, it's superb. You can see people when they do have that passion light up and it changes the energy. And
I mean, even like Dragon's Den, you know, I mean, there's a classic example. Some people can't deliver the pitch, right? But you know that when it's the ones that engage with the dragons are the ones who are speaking with such passion and enthusiasm and belief. And when they've got a good product, you know, that's when it captivates them and says, fuck, I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
When Katie Taylor came to see me, you know, for the first time, and I didn't really want to do women's boxing. She came in and it was like this energy in the room to say, I want to change the sport. And I was like, well, I'm in. Where do I sign? I want to be involved. You know, and that's the same with whatever you're selling.
Eddie, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, and thanks for seeing in the 100th episode. I don't want Fred to be upset with me because I know you've got to go. You're a busy man. Good luck with everything, mate. I really hope.
Good luck for the future.
Yeah, cheers. All right. Thanks again, Eddie.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.